Hey, it's the last day of February, and you know what that means. That fun with finances is here for you because that is our focus for this month. Next week, we're going to get into wellness, but for today, we are going to get into fun with finances. I am Stephanie Zellhoefer. I am your host. I am also the host of the Question of You podcast, which is a 20-minute weekly segment that goes into some of the deeper storylines behind the conversations that we're having every month on the Masterclass Shortcut Series, which is what we're doing here today. Why am I doing this? Well, because life 101, you learn things as you get older that no one really told you about when you were a kid or when you were going through your adolescence or your early 20s, and you're like, wow, I wish someone would have told me about that. And even though I don't claim to have all the right answers, I do tend to want to share out many of the things that I've learned through my experiences, and I'm giving them to you to see if it's something that can help you put yourself into a phenomenal future state. Today, we are going to talk about fun with finances. I will tell you that there are some tools that exist on Zelladu.com. That is Zelladu.com. And if you're interested in watching this, if you're interested in downloading the actual PDF, if you're interested in downloading the workbooks and the templates and the tools that we've got, all of it is there on Zelladu.com. You can also follow me at Zelladu_ on Instagram. And if you're ever interested in sharing your insights, giving me your comments and feedback, coming on as a host for the Question of You podcast, all of those things can be achieved by either reaching out to me through my website or reaching out to me through my Instagram. All right, let's get started. So things to have today: internal motivation. Are we ready to do this? An open mind. Let's see what else we can learn. And new perspective is fresh perspective. And note-taking and thought sheets, because I'm throwing some stuff down pretty quickly. And maybe the things that you want to have stick or things that you might want to dig into, it's always nice to jot down a note or two. This is typically around an hour long, but again, the podcast breaks it up into 20-minute sections, and we're going to try and keep it moving. So why am I talking about this? Well, I've had a very unique blend of life so far. I have worked in different capacities, both for corporate entities, large ones like Disney and the Darden Restaurant Group. I've worked for independent projects as an independent contractor and understand some of the dynamics of making your taxes look good if you want to do things like buy a house. And so I'm going to take that first person perspective and kind of integrate it into what it is that has become the collective result of my experience. Now, I was never really one to receive an allowance, but my mom always did give $40 for our birthdays. And even with that, when that $40 came, I put it away. I've always been one to not be instantly wanting to spend what I get. And that's my nature, and we're not all like that, and that's fine. But 75% of Americans who are asked, who have children, they say that they do give their kids an allowance. And when you ask them why they give their kids an allowance, the majority of those people say that they want to teach their children financial responsibility. Well, if you can believe it, only 3% of the kids that are receiving that allowance are actually putting money into savings. Now, I would like to challenge that if you are not putting money into savings, you're not doing a full job at teaching your children financial responsibility. And I think that all of us as we get older recognize that if you have money in a pot, it's way easier than trying to figure out, and less stressful than trying to figure out how to make money grow on a tree. And a lot of us do turn to tools that have been designed to be leveraged, but if you're not leveraging them correctly, then you're going to wind up in debt, and you're going to wind up spending a lot more money than you need to, paying back people for letting you borrow money. So what could you do? Well, if you do have the opportunity and you do have a child and you're giving them an allowance, start with a piggy bank or start by opening up an actual account for your kid to put money away, and talk to them about what that might look like for their 10th birthday, or what that might look like for their 15th birthday, or what that might look like when they graduate high school and they want to take a trip around the world, or they want to go to college and not have to worry about any of the finances for the first year, or whatever that might be. But if you can help your child visualize where that savings might take them and get them pumped and energized about putting some of that money away, even if it's only $5 a week, you're talking about, $1,000 a year. And by the time your kid gets to 18, you're talking about 18 grand. I mean, that's, I think, as much as it costs for me to at least get through my first or second year of college. So thinking about it in little bits and pieces has really helped me, and I would encourage you to think about things in that similar fashion. I did mention savings, and most of us are putting money into a bank. So let me touch base very quickly on some of the things I learned with regards to banking. Number one, the credit union. I had no idea that the credit union was going to be something that helped me save and help me leverage some of the tools that come from credit unions that you don't get at traditional banking institutions. Now, credit unions are typically formed when you get a group of people with shared resources together. My credit union is through Disney. There's also credit unions that are available through educational institutions, if you're a government employee. So take a look and see if there is a way for you, whether it's your parents or yourself and the company that you're currently working for, to become involved in a credit union. The way that I started off with a credit union was just by opening up a bank account and then utilizing my credit union account as my secret savings. So my primary institution at the time was Wells Fargo, but every paycheck that I got, I put a little bit of money into my secret savings at my credit union. And what's nice about the credit union is that there's typically no minimum required in your account, so you won't be dinged if you have a low balance in your account. There are really great vehicle purchasing and home purchasing programs, and you really do get a consistent relationship dynamic. So when you do go into your branch, you usually see the same people and they get to know you a bit. Also, a major win for me was that I couldn't go to every ATM and just pull that money out whenever I wanted it. So a really good way to save is to have your secret account at a credit union. And a great way to plan for your financial future, if possible, is to keep that credit union open and readily available for you, so that when the time comes, when you're ready to make a larger purchase, you'll have some really great options for you available at the institution. Now, something that I don't know a lot about, but I'm learning more about, and on that note, I will refer everyone who's watching this segment to go to NerdWallet. It's a digital platform that has a bunch of information about everything that we're talking about today, and they break it down in a very cool, systematic way. So check out NerdWallet. But what I can tell you is that digital banking is a new kind of revolution. It has a lot less overhead. And there are some benefits that I can tell you. Number one, a lot of them don't penalize you for having a low minimum balance. Number two, a lot of them don't have a required startup fee to open your account. And number three, a lot of them have larger yields, meaning if you put your money into the bank and you put it into the savings account, you'll grow interest on the money you're putting away. And a lot of that is because when you're working in digital banking, you just don't have the same cost of, physical present space and leasing. You don't have employees that are in one actual central workplace or many central branches that require workman's compensation packages and all of these things that come along with it. So when you go with digital banking, you get benefits in not having to pay in so much to actually save and put your money into an institution. Another cool thing about digital banking is that they've partnered a lot with the programs that are operating ATMs. And so if you're doing digital banking, you could probably go to one of any ATMs, and oftentimes they will pay back the transaction fee that you are incurring at those ATMs. So with that said, banking in general, you just want to be aware of what the cost of banking is for you. So be aware of the startup, be aware if you get dinged by that minimum. If you're not able to hold that minimum, find an account that doesn't charge you for not having enough money in the bank. And understand, what those transaction fees are and what the cost of banking is. And share your thoughts with me too, because I don't know a lot about digital banking. I'm going to put my finger in and see how it goes, and share out those results. But if anyone else does have any information to share out, please let us know. And then with regular banks, same thing. Just know the cost of doing your banking, understand what the interest is that you're getting back on your savings, and if you're putting money away, how your account is working for you, not how they're working for themselves. Moving into investments. Now, my investment experience came in a very interesting way. I was super young. I was in my young 20s, my early 20s. And someone actually came to me who was working at Disney, a friend of mine working at Disney, and she introduced to me the concept of investment. If she wouldn't have come to me, I don't think I ever would have started my investment experience. So actively engage. Again, NerdWallet is a great place to start, but go out there and find out what the options are for you. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how I was served by these investments already in my life, only being 41 and already having the opportunities to leverage the money that I've saved from my investments has been super duper awesome. So we're living in a different way of life. A lot of us aren't living the traditional last generation kind of way of living, where maybe you're getting married earlier, maybe you're having kids earlier, maybe you are buying a house earlier, you're not traveling as much, and the world is a little bit smaller. Well, the world is huge now. And a lot of us are living more entrepreneurial lifestyles, and a lot of us are living a little bit more experience-based lifestyle. So it's really important to think about how you are managing your financial future for yourself, because, we're not working in this world of pension and retirement funds and these things that a company that will work at for 40 and 50 and 60 years will give us at the end of our life. Now we're kind of having to think about how are we saving for ourselves. And so investments will give you the opportunity to do that. So number one, we talked about the secret savings account, but be your own beneficiary and start putting a little bit of your paycheck into a secret account that you do not touch, that just lets the money grow for you. And when you do need to tap into that for a larger purchase, or heaven forbid an emergency or a wedding or something that's super fabulous, you'll have that nugget there for you and you won't need to go into debt to have the experience. So secret savings account, peeling off just a little bit of your paycheck and automatically depositing it into a separate account. You'll never miss the money. And then in 15, 20 years, 10 years is what it was for me, it turns into this really nice pot. And you're like, wow, I started off with $20 and then it became $50. And I think by the end of my secret account, life, I was putting $100 in. And right now I'm transitioning, but as soon as I reestablish myself in the payroll department, creating that secret account is something that I will do again. So secret account. Number 2, stock market, mutual funds, and bonds. So a couple of ways that we can invest with regards to putting our money into a established institution that will work for us. The Roth IRA, the traditional IRA, and the 401k. What does it all mean? Well, we can take a flashback into the past and do a very quick background on where the stock market came from, just, for a little bit of insight. But basically, the stock market is an institution that bases the value of a stock on supply and demand. And so if you are a company that has 100 shares and you're doing really well and you take yourself public, those 100 shares or fractions of those 100 shares will be made available to the public. The public will invest in that and say, oh my gosh, I totally love this. And based off of that supply and demand, If there's only 100 and 1 million people want it, the cost of that share is going to go up. If there's 180 people want it, the cost of that share is going to go down. And so you'll see fluctuations within the stock market at any given time on these things that are traded. And it could be that you're having a really good day. It could be that you're having a really crappy day as a business. Technology has allowed us to see some really interesting things. For example, Facebook and Twitter. When Twitter took Donald Trump off of their platform, were the stocks going to go up, or the stocks going to go down? When Reddit just now was having a social conversation and a bunch of people just like you and I recognized that GameStop had been significantly shorted by all of the pros that were doing their brokerage deals and wound up buying up all of the shorted stock. We played a seriously cool game of chess, and all of these brokers lost billions of dollars. But that singular episode of having human beings like you and I invested in the stock market and checking those brokers so that they know we're watching you, the entire market is going to change. And I think that transparency is going to be amazing. I think the developments that are coming in technology, in space travel, in sustainability, all of these things are going to lend themselves to more and more opportunities to invest in the stock market. And I do think that it is an awesome way to participate. I don't think that you should go balls to the walls, and I don't think that you should put your money into the stock market if you're not being active in it. At least an annual meeting every year with your broker, I would say, is critical. But if you see something that you love and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm super into drones, or I'm super into electric vehicles, or I'm really into, cleaning up the ocean. If you do research on companies that are working to create solutions in those sectors and you invest your money in those things, then you will be able to watch your money work for you. So that's the concept of the stock market. I won't go too heavily into the history of the stock market, but you can see that it started in the 1400s. It didn't originally start in the United States of America. It was actually something that started in Europe. And it started very small within a company that had a lot of different services and products that they were trading. And the supply and demand thing started. And that was something that was adopted, brought over to the United States. It's seen some serious ups and downs. It will continue to see serious ups and downs. But to be invested in the long run, you typically find those gains more than you find those losses. So it's just important to know that if you are investing, you need to commit to investing for the long run. And hopefully you'll have some really awesome opportunities where you can, leverage the Reddits and the GameStops, but if you aren't that aggressive, you'll see returns that do come back exponentially. I think my financial investment plan has me retiring with something like $2 million in my account. So we'll see, but I'll take it, right? And it's just by putting $200 every month into my accounts and making those work for me. So how do you know which account works for you? Well, you can see here, and there's teeny tiny little text, so we'll definitely have this available for download, but there are pros and cons to the different types of accounts that you can have. I'm going to summarize it pretty quickly and tell you that if your company is invested in a 401k and there is a match, meaning that if you're putting in $5 a week to a 401k and your company matches that, you want to put as much as your company matches into that 401k consistently. So, don't put in $100 if they're only putting in $5, but whatever your company program looks like, and there's a match, invest your money and match yourself to, okay, cool, you're putting in $3, I'm going to put in $3. You're putting in $10, I'm putting in $10. Now, for a personal sake, the traditional and the Roth IRA are typically the ways that people explore. Now, for me, I am a Roth IRA fan. What does that mean? A Roth IRA is the type of an account that it is it will let you take out money before you reach your retirement age without penalty, as long as you're only taking the money that you've actually put in. So earlier this year, I bought the other half of my house from my ex. The only way that I was able to do that was by borrowing money from my Roth IRA, which I took out with no penalty. There was a tiny little fee for transaction. And I just told myself, as soon as I can, I need to repay myself for the money that I've taken out. But I was able to buy my house from my ex because of the money that I had put away in my Roth IRA. The Roth and the traditional have some caps. I'm not going to go too heavy into detail, but you can see on this beautiful list, which is also available on NerdWallet. That's right. There are really great ways for you to save your money and put just a little bit away every single month so that by the time you are gray-haired, silver-haired, whatever you want to call it, you'll have a nice little nest to extract. And even more so, if you find hardship along the way, you'll also be able to take some of that money and make it work for you as you are going through your life. So saving a little bit and making it work for you. The stock market. All right, so what's next? Well, what's next is credit cards. And if you can believe it, in the course of an American's life, the average amount of money that person will spend in interest over the course of their life is $600,000. Now, what is interest? Just to remind you guys, interest is money that you are paying back to an institution for letting you borrow money from them so that you could buy that new jacket, so that you could get that fast food, so that you could buy things that you couldn't afford at the time. $600,000. It's crazy, right? So what we want to do is we want to try to eliminate paying back interest as much as we can. Now, right now in America, 2021, interest rates for houses are really low. So you'll find that a lot of people have been refinancing their home. If you refinance your home, you can literally take what you owe the bank for letting you borrow the money that you have set into motion for buying your house. You can cut that down by like 120 grand or $300,000 just by going down a few percentage points. So we're not going to go in too deep, but what we are going to talk about right now is making your credit cards work for you. So let me take a sip. Number one, you want to choose the right card for you. There is a document on Zelladu Masterminds Community on Zelladu.com that speaks to some of the top credit cards depending on the category of person that you are. Whether you're a mother who's buying tons of groceries, whether you're a college student, whether you're someone with great credit, whether you're someone with terrible credit, it's all there. Check it out, and you can also find that information on NerdWallet. But you want to choose the right card for you. And there are really great programs for pretty much anyone. So don't just apply to a credit card that shows up in the mail. Don't just, get the first card that comes your way if you're passing by and someone has a booth and they're like offering you a credit card. Don't get it unless you know that it's working for you. Number two, if you have a credit card, this is a great one. Call the company and ask them, especially right now in COVID times, but also anytime you want to, call them and ask them if you are able to reduce your interest rate for a fraction of time. So if you are not currently paying off your credit card balance on a monthly basis, which means zero balance, and every month you're at, you're basically, if you walk away tomorrow, you owe nothing. If you're not that type of person and you're working on paying down your credit card debt, call your credit card company, and be like, hi, my name is Stephanie. I have been on a really great track record and I've been making on-time payments and I've been making my minimums. I'm really trying to work to get to a milestone in my financial future, and I'm wondering if there's anything that you can do for the next 6 months, 9 months, year in reducing my interest rates, because I'm showing you that I'm doing the best that I can to pay this down, and I'm hoping that you can help me do the same. Now, I've done this twice, and each time I have been able to reduce my interest. So be proactive in reaching out and asking your credit card company if they can lower your rates. Number 3, keep your balances low and pay in full and on time. Now, here's something that I've learned. A lot of credit card companies now are anticipating that you are not going to pay on time. So they charge you a late fee on the day that your credit card is due. Now, if you're on the West Coast of America, oftentimes your payment date expires at 9 p.m., midnight on the East Coast. So what I'd like to give you as a tip is pay your credit card bill the day before the due date, because you don't have to worry about all of that, like 24-hour period. I'm going to give you a late fee. It's going to be $40, and then it's going to come off in a day if you pay by 9, and if you pay by midnight, or it just gets ugly. So if you can, set a precedent in paying your bill one day prior to, at the minimum, that it's due, not on the actual day that they say. Tip number 4, keep your accounts open and active. So the whole purpose of having a credit card is to establish credit, so that later in your life, as you're buying bigger things, the banking institutions and the companies that are looking to lend you money can look at your history and say, oh, Stephanie's bought 2 cars and paid them off. She makes on-time payments on her mortgage. Well, at that time, I didn't have a mortgage, so she makes on-time payments on her cell phone bill. She makes on-time payments on her electricity bill. Whatever bills you've got, if you're in the habit of paying off your credit card bills, is a huge thing for Americans, right? That typically should be how your credit card is being used. You want to establish credit so that you can build trust in getting more money lent to you as you become ready to buy more things. So if you're not using credit cards for that, then you're probably using credit cards because you want something that you can't afford. And so you are making purchases against your credit. And if you're spending, like, let's just say $20 on a new shirt, or on a dinner, what you're probably doing is spending $35 to $50 on that dinner, because you're spending $20 to have the food, but you are also incurring interest on that if you're not paying it off right away. So be active, use your card, but only spend what you can pay off immediately. And otherwise, we get ourselves into a pickle. And yes, there are exceptions to the rule. And right now with COVID, it's crazy. So I'm not looking to get hard on anyone, but don't get into the habit of spending money that you don't have, because it won't serve you well for the big picture. Tip number 5, don't apply for credit if you don't need it. So applying for credit and having cards, we are in a very overwhelming state and will continue to be overwhelming. So having a card means you need to maintain it. There's typically an annual percentage, like some sort of fee that you're paying. And it dings your credit. The more you open credit cards, the less high your credit score will be. So if you don't need that credit, don't establish it. You know what I like to say? I like to say, keep it simple, right? Moving on. So selecting a credit card. And this again, go to the Nerd Wallet, go to Zelladu Masterminds community, check it out, what the options are. But these are the things you want to look at. Number 1. Look for a card that has a 0% APR for 12 to 14 months. What does that mean? That means that you can spend on that card and you won't incur interest for the first year. Now, this does not mean that you should get into the habit of not paying off your card, but what it does mean is that if for whatever reason you're getting used to the cycle and the payments and whatever the case may be, you're not going to have to pay anyone for borrowing that money for that period of time. Now, the crazy thing is that once that time expires, that 12 to 14 months is up, any money that you have on that credit card instantly is probably going to be charged somewhere between 11 and 25% interest. So the goal of opening up a card with 0% APR is by the time that card does not have 0 APR working for you anymore, you have got to have that card paid down, preferably to 0, but as low as you can. Number 2, know your credit score. The better your credit, the better your APR. So, I just mentioned, but typically your APR is going to be somewhere between 11, 12% and 23, 25%. So if you have good credit, you're able to negotiate better rates with lower interest. And if you don't have established credit, you'll be paying higher interest. And the reason for that is because the credit card companies that can't trust you because you don't have credit or you have bad credit don't want you to get into the habit of spending their money without you having to pay them back. The tricky thing is that if you're not very good at paying people back for the money that you borrow from them, 25% APR is basically saying, for every $10 I spend, every month that $10 is going to be $12.50 that I'm paying back. And so that interest is, that $250 on that $10, or if it's $1,000, that, $250, that is a huge amount of money to be paying back on money that you're borrowing. So be very aware of what it means when you are accruing that money on your credit card. Number 3, understand your annual fee and how it gets billed. Crazy story for me in college. I opened up a credit card and I didn't even know that I had received it. I don't even know where it went, but the annual fee for that card got charged to the card. And then after I was done with college, I got this bill for like $7,000, and these creditors came after me and they're like, "You owe us money." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Remember that Discover card that you opened your freshman year for that t-shirt?" Well, yeah, that is money that you now owe us. And I was like, "What do you mean? I never used that credit card." And they're like, "Well, the annual rate was charged to that card and now you owe us." And so we settled for something like $1,000, and I was super upset about it. I learned the hard way. But be very careful about those annual startup fees, especially if you're opening up a card and then don't use it. Your name is attached to that, so you want to be responsible about opening up your credit cards. Number 4, understanding your sign-up bonus. So there are some really great programs out there, especially if you travel a lot. You'll be on a plane and they'll be like, "You're going to get 40,000 points or 20,000 points for signing up for this credit card today, and that's enough for 2 flights to Mexico." Awesome. But does that mean that you can only use it in October? Or does that mean that there are blackout dates? Or does that mean that you have to travel on a Tuesday? So understanding not just the fancy stuff that they're dangling in front of you, but kind of the tell me what this means against my lifestyle and how it can actually work for me. So do a little bit of digging on that. And also some interesting things. So you do get teased with cards and rewards and programs on how you are able to build rewards. 2% cash back, free flights, free books, whatever it might be. Sometimes you get those points, very rarely, when you make the purchase. Usually you get those points after you've paid that bill. So there are some cards where they might split it and be like, you're going to get half of your points when you spend and you're going to get half of your points when you pay. But for the most part, you're not getting the rewards of your credit card until you make the payment on the money that you've spent. So if you go out and you spend, $50,000 and you think that that's going to get you a flight to Aruba, until you pay off that $50,000, the points probably won't be working for you. So it's really about making your credit card work for you. And I will tell you this, most credit card companies are not sitting around thinking, "Oh, I hope she does well in life. I hope she really gets out there and pays her credit card bills on time and just, lives interest free." No. Most credit cards are in business because they know that they can become ridiculously wealthy by making a little bit of money off of a bunch of people who can't afford to spend the money that they're spending or don't understand how to use a credit card in the right way. So own that credit card, make your choices and get a card that works for you when you're ready for it, but do not be irresponsible in having that credit. Now, let's say, for example, you have established a habit in spending. There are a couple of strategies that you can put to use that will help you get yourself out of debt. So let's run through those real quick. There's debt snowball. Debt snowball is when you can focus on the smallest amount of debt first. You make the payments against that debt, And then once that debt is paid off and that credit card is done, close the card and then take the minimum payments or the payments that you are making against that debt and add it into your next credit card that you're paying down. So just because you're done paying down the credit card doesn't mean that the money that you're paying that credit card down with shouldn't continue to go towards paying down your debt. And you snowball it into the next and then the next and the next. And what happens is you get used to putting the money that you're paying off your debt with into the system, and then soon you'll be debt free. Otherwise, you start spending that money and the debt that you have and the interest that you're paying continue. The Debt Avalanche, which is happily named, you pay off your debt with the highest interest rate first, and you pay minimum rates on everything else. And you just focus on paying down the credit card that has the highest interest rate. Then once that is paid down, then you move to the next one with the next highest interest rate. And you continue to do minimum payments on everything else. But what winds up happening is you wind up paying a lot less in interest, and you are paying a lot more towards the things that you're actually purchasing. You can also look to see if there's the opportunity to do transfers in that regard. And if there is a credit card that has a lower interest rate that allows you to transfer from a card that has a higher interest rate, you can look to shift. Speaking of that, it takes us to debt consolidation. So debt consolidation is when you take multiple old debts and you put them into a singular new one, ideally at a lower interest rate, like we were just chatting about. So that could be shifting balance. That could be taking out a personal loan that has a lower interest rate and you pay yourself back instead of paying the credit card company. So take a look at debt consolidation. And then there is the debt management plan. And I will say that as Americans, we're getting a lot better at vocalizing with regards to how we can plan for our future. But if you do find yourself in a position where you are just overwhelmed by the amount of debt that you have and you don't think that you can handle it anymore, there are nonprofit groups that for no cost can help you create a debt management plan and put things into a strategic, supported system that helps you work with getting rid of that terrible, ugly, nasty debt. All right, so we're moving through. I'm talking as quickly as I can. I hope it's not too fast. But now we're going to talk about saving to spend, which is different than saving to save. Where we just came from was the saving to save, right? We're going to put money into the bank. We're going to put money into investments. We're going to touch it as little as we can. And hopefully by the time we get to 75 or 65 or 55 or whatever, that money will be there available for us to use in whatever way we see fit. Now, saving to spend is where we actually revert back to the Zelladu Masterminds page on Zelladu.com, and you'll see that there is an estimated budget template that is ready for everyone to use. Knowing what you're spending and knowing what you need to make in order to save instead of go into debt is super important. And I know no one likes to do it, but being aware is so much better than living in ignorance. So Americans, on average, spend a little over $2,500 every year on entertaining guests, traveling, knowing what it is that we are shifting into, which is, experience-based lifestyles. It's important to know what we have to pay on a daily basis, a monthly basis, and then thinking a little bit beyond that, where it is that we want to go with the money that we are making and how we can make it work for us for everything beyond that month to month. So let's take a look at understanding your budget. I myself am someone who does like to travel, who does like to throw extravagant parties, who does like to think about buying a electric vehicle. Other people might be more interested in buying awesome gifts for their friends, or buying a very cool collectible item, like something in a box that has the original wrapping. But all of those things will require money. And so understanding your budget and understanding your lifestyle and what it is that you want, your personal goals, is going to be the place to start. And oftentimes when we do our estimate, we can see some of those things laid out, and it helps us grab onto the ways in which we can manage the things that we are passionate about. So, estimating. Creating a personal budget should never be done to create anxiety. This is an empowerment exercise that is intended to help you know where it is that you want to go. There are basic steps and there are resources waiting for you, as I mentioned. So, how do you estimate your budget? Step one, you put in all of the costs that are recurring monthly. That's everything from your rent to your cable bill to your cell phone bill to your SoundCloud subscriptions or your Amazon.com or your Hulu or whatever it is that you've got coming out of your account. A really great way, if you do have a credit card, to track that is to go to your credit card and to run a monthly report. And you can see what it is that you're putting down. That includes your food, that includes your gas, that includes your vehicle maintenance. On some of those, you're going to need to take a look at the annual spending that you've put, and you can do an average. Typically, for a car that's in good shape, if you put $100 a month into your budget, that gives you $1,200 a year. That's your oil changes, that might be new tires, and it will bring you to a healthy place. But you don't want to leave it at nothing. You also want to remember things like insurance, anything that may be like out of sight, out of mind, but that is coming out of your account on a consistent basis. Number two, you want to add in the extras. You want to add in the, I want to take a trip to Yosemite this year, or I want to go down to Baja California, or John is getting married. And you want to make sure that you're thinking through those things. And in the template, you'll see that what you do when you add in those extras, it actually folds into your monthly so that you know what you need to make monthly in order to not only pay your monthly expenses, but also to pay for your aboves and beyonds, your extras. What you'll also find on the spreadsheet is at the very bottom, it will show you what you would need to make on an annual to be able to hit your monthly spending. So let's just say you're spending $2,000 on a monthly basis. If you put that into perspective and you look at the tracker at the bottom, you'll see that you're going to need to have a job that you're making $60,000 minimum, something along those lines. So it's all there for you. So check it out at zelladumasterminds.com or zelladu.com under the Zelladu Masterminds page. And really, this is all about aligning, and once you understand where your spending lies, you've got a couple of options. Number one, you can get creative. And this has been a really nice segue with COVID. All of the expectations are out the door. So if you're going out to dinner with friends, before you go out, ask everybody if they've got Venmo and have everybody Venmo you $40. Or before they leave, divide it up, or, make sure everyone's putting their credit card down. Be a little bit more strategic and a little more creative on how you are taking on social endeavors with regards to how other people are financially contributing. It could also be that you're doing potlucks, or that you bring, different creative components into party themes so that that you're not having to spend on everything, but maybe you do a themed night and everyone can bring a different dish. Or you can have someone bring board games from home to help offset some of the entertainment. Or you can ask if someone wants to bring their speaker or a playlist. And thinking about a collective community environment, I think, could be a way to save some costs. Also, another tip with regards to spending. A lot of times when we try to save money, we wind up spending money. And the place that I've seen this happen most often is in traveling. I have been at more airports where you have seen people come in who have bought a $100 flight, and then they arrive with their luggage, and their luggage isn't going to be able to get onto that plane unless they pay X amount more, or they have to buy their actual ticket, or like there are hidden costs sometimes in the cheap way. So when you are making purchases, be aware of the way that you travel, be aware of the things that you expect, and read the fine line with regards to where those additional costs are going to come into play, or prepare yourself by traveling super light. I've seen more people shell out hundreds of dollars at airports because of costs that were not brought to them in the front end. All right, we're running through it, but I hope that you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying it too. We have two more things to talk about, and they're both in the category of larger expenses. So you want to buy a car. You do, or you want to buy a house. There are certain things that overlap into all of it. Number one, start sooner than when you're actually ready. So if you have dreams of buying a home, get yourself on Zillow, put out a home search, and put yourself in for weekly notifications. And what you'll do is over time, and for me, it was years, you'll see how the market is trending. You'll see if there's really an opportunity for, leveraging low interest rate, or if there's a lot of property on the market, the cost, of properties is going to go down, or if there's very limited inventory, costs are going to skyrocket. And it's good for you to be a investor in the process so that you can take advantage of the market as life brings new discovery. Cars are a bit different. Cars are typically at a much lower interest. Cars are typically at a 60-month payback plan. And the cool thing about cars is that if you can buy a car and pay it off, it's a really awesome way to demonstrate and build credit. So you want to make sure that you, especially this day and age when we have so many opportunities to be ahead of the game, you want to go in to purchase a vehicle already pre-approved. So go to your bank, go to your credit union, say, hey, I'm interested in buying a car. Can I get pre-approved? Before you walk onto that car lot and you talk to that car dealer, you should have an offer in your hand that tells you how much you can afford and can tell you how much of an interest rate your banking institution or other entity is going to be willing to offer you. Again, you can check out NerdWallet. There's some really great resources here. So you are walking onto that site, and let's just say you want to trade in a car too. Understand the Kelley Blue Book value. Do a little bit of research, reach out to like a CarMax and see if you can get a trade-in price on how much they'll offer you for your car. Before you make any decisions, walk in knowing what your circumstances are. So let's say CarMax is going to give you $5,000 for your car. And let's say your bank has given you a 3% interest rate for a $20,000 vehicle loan. Well, you walk into that car lot, and number one, you already know what you can afford, because oftentimes car dealers and salespeople are going to show you more than what you can afford. So just having that mindset is good. Number two, they're going to offer you an APR, and if you have nothing to counteract with, then you're kind of stuck with what they're offering you. And it's a lot harder to drive the bargain, but you can be like, listen, I've already got a 3% from this institution. They're going to want to find a better deal for you because they want to be the ones to finance your vehicle purchase. Number three, you don't have to go in telling them that you're trading in. You want to kind of negotiate the deal, and then you want to let them know, I'd like to trade in my car. What are you willing to offer me for that? And if you've already done the Kelley Blue Book, you see the market value, you have an offer from a CarMax. If they tell you that they're going to give you $2,000 for your car, you can tell them, you know what, I already have a $5,000 offer from CarMax. I already did the research and I know that this car is worth $4,000 or $6,000 if I sell it in the market. So $2,000 is a really bad deal. You can either offer me $5,000 and make it a match, or I'm going to walk away. And again, they want inventory. They want used cars. They want to be able to flip those vehicles and resell them. So go into the purchasing opportunity as a player in the game. Don't go in as someone who's like, oh, I never bought a car before and I haven't done any research. Everything that you need is right here. So, and it's not a lot. It really isn't a lot. And then when you walk in and you have that information, you literally feel like a baller. Like it feels good to know what you can afford, to know what interest rates you can get, to negotiate a great deal, to walk off the lot with the salesperson kind of being like, oh man, I made a lot less on that than I wanted to, but bravo to that person for championing their own financial freedom. Then there's the concept of the home. And this is the last point that we'll have today on the Fun with Finances conversation. We talked a little bit about it a few minutes ago, but if you're interested in buying a home, there are a couple of things that you really need to consider. Number one, if you aren't working in a consistent job, your taxes is going to be something that really come into play. It took me approximately 5 years to be able to purchase a home because I've been an independent contractor for the large majority of my adult life. And because when you're an independent contractor, a lot of times you write off a lot more of your income. You know, my home is my office. I'm traveling a lot to try and schmooze and booze. Whatever those components are, you write them off. And then the line item that the banks look at with regards to your loan approval falls flat and you don't have enough to qualify. So what I needed to do as an independent contractor was I needed to not write off as many of my personal expenses for several years in a row so that my line items looked better to someone who was looking to go in on a loan with me. And so particularly if you're an independent contractor, but for anyone who's interested in purchasing a home, talk to your bank right away, understand what you need to have in place in order to be able to buy a home. And oftentimes it takes a couple of years for you to be able to purchase. And again, like I mentioned, put yourself on to the Zillows, search in, maybe you're thinking about buying a home in and around the area that you're in. Maybe you're also interested in exploring a completely different market. Maybe you want to move to Arizona, or maybe you want to move to Oklahoma, or whatever the case may be. You can have multiple searches and you can kind of understand what the pros and cons are with regards to the housing market. And with that said, you want to be really good once you do purchase a home in number one, making your payments. In number two, understanding how much money you're actually putting into your home. And what I will say is this, like right now, I'm at a 4.5%. My home, when I purchased it, cost $242,000. At a 4.5% interest rate over a 30-year loan, I am paying over $200,000 in interest, which means that I'm paying almost as much in interest as I am in the actual cost of my home itself. It's like I'm paying $500,000 for a house that cost $242,000. So a couple of tips. Number one, when you purchase a home, the very first thing that the payments go towards is interest. So if you look at your payment plan, 99% at the beginning of what you're paying back goes to interest. What does that mean? That means that you're paying the bank back before you're actually paying for your home. Now, there's a couple of tricks that you can do, and I strongly suggest that you consider them. Number one, pay more monthly as soon as you can. Like, don't think about starting to pay more 5, 10, 15 years down the road, because at 15 years, you're at halfway through and now you're paying towards your principal more. But what you want to do is from the day you start making your payments on your mortgage, you want to pay $200, $300, whatever you can afford, $400 more, and you want to put it against the principal. And I'll tell you why. If you put your additional cost or payment towards your principal, that principal that is sitting in that account is going to accrue less interest. And over the course of your 30-year loan, if you're paying just $200, $300 more, you're literally going to wind up saving, you can do it one of two ways, time or money, either $60,000 of your interest, Or when you look at it in the big picture, you can shave upwards of 5, 6, 7 years off of your 30-year loan because you're not having to pay back that interest. So biggest tip that I can give to anyone who's in home ownership, especially if you've just gotten into it, is come up with a financial plan to purchase your home in a way that you can afford it at as good of an interest rate as you can, and come up with a strategy that allows you to pay a little bit more than you can. And it can go both ways. You can do it monthly, or if you had a really great year or you have a bonus coming in, put a whole nother month's worth of mortgage payment. Go ahead and pay it off, but just make sure that you're paying it towards the principal and you're not paying it towards the interest. A lot of times you won't get the clarity there, and you'll think that paying off towards the interest will be the best strategy for you, because if you're paying off interest, then there's less interest to pay. But the interest is based off of the outstanding principal that exists on the account. And if you do nothing for the first couple of years except for make those minimum payments, the principal amount doesn't change at all. So if you're paying against that principal, your interest will actually be lower, and you can wind up saving yourself years and tens of thousands of dollars on your mortgage. That's it for me. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode, this Masterclass Shortcut Series, Fun with Finances. I know it's a lot of information to take in. I hope that you had a good time thinking through some of the things that might be relevant to you. I hope that I hit some points that are considerations that will help you out. And please let me know. A lot of you guys have been texting me. I haven't gotten a whole lot of chat. I think it's because I'm just kind of posting it here and leaving it for now. But I do really want to know how this is helping you, and if there's any additional information or anything that I can change in my delivery to make it more of a lovely experience. I know last time I danced, this time I didn't. But that's it. March is all about wellness. My fourth podcast for Fun with Finances is going to be coming out in just a couple of days. And then I'm going to be in it to win it with wellness. And we're talking about it all. We're talking about the mind, the body, the soul, the spirit, staying healthy, staying active, staying fit in all different ways of life. Have a wonderful rest of, I can't say February because this is the end of it, but hope you're doing well, and I'm an open book, so reach out if there's anything I can do for you. See you later.